What's up, everybody? It is Jarryd with Do It Now Movement, here to talk with y'all a little bit about Eurocentric curriculum from my perspective. Before I get started, I'm going to remind everybody to stay tuned for a Now Talk tomorrow at 7 o'clock p.m. on our Instagram Live. You can find us at doitnow_movement with amazing content, and dope people are going to be presenting tomorrow. So please make sure you tune in. Don't miss it. Again, that's tomorrow at 7 p.m. on Insta at doitnow_movement. This topic is really important to me. As a white educator in a school district with a majority of students and families of color, I feel like it's important for me, a white educator with a lot of privilege, to address this head on and to be really open and transparent about my feelings of this topic. It is something that's important that we need to be discussing more. So with that, I'm just going to give you guys a quick introduction. Again, my name is Jarryd Huddock. I'm a 7th and 8th grade teacher at Samuel Gompers School in the Winfield neighborhood of West Philadelphia. We are part of the School District of Philadelphia, and we are also a community school through the Mayor's Office of Education. I'm also a student council co-advisor and the middle grades team lead at Samuel Gompers. And I'm a counseling student, a master's student at Westchester University, pursuing a degree in school counseling and licensure in the state of PA. So, please, to see all of the great work that my school does, you can also follow us on Instagram at Gompers_cares. And with that being said, we are going to get rolling at this point. I'm going to start off with this slide. The text "Lies My Teacher Told Me." This is something that had a huge impact on me as an educator this summer. Oftentimes in the summer, I think about the question, what can I do to support my community, my students, my families, the next upcoming school year? And the question always is to be as competent as possible and to learn as much as possible, especially doing a lot of the anti-racist work that we are doing. My presentation is framed a lot around this text. And I just want to point out that there is also a version of this text for high school students. And I know some of my colleagues read it with their classes. So it is a great text for students, but also for white educators and parents and for anyone in general. What are we going to be discussing today? A couple things. Our objectives for this really quick video are to quickly break down Eurocentric curriculum. What is it? I have some facts for y'all that I think are important to address. I'm going to talk a little bit about how only using a textbook can be problematic. I'm going to talk about the importance of representation. Why is Black history only highlighted in February in a lot of school districts and schools? Why is this not something we are doing 365 days of the year? And most importantly, what is our role as educators? So, Eurocentric, the definition for Eurocentric. This is a worldview where we are looking at history and culture of the world through a European lens. This is immediately problematic because the world is a massive, vast place with a lot of diverse groups of people. And when we talk specifically about curriculum, Eurocentric curriculum is founded on principles of colonialism and conquering. Again, is viewed through a European lens. It leaves out a ton of diverse knowledge, in particular of Black, Brown, Indigenous, and other marginalized people. One of the things I think about when I look at Eurocentric curriculum, when we have courses in high school, at the high school level, or even at the collegiate level, why is it that Western or European history classes are deemed as mandatory? They're simply titled history. And then you have Indigenous studies or Black history. Those tend to be electives, if they're even offered at all. So that kind of just gives insight into the problems of Eurocentric curriculum from a systemic level. And most importantly, Eurocentric curriculum teaches white students that they are highly valued, in particular in spaces of knowledge and power and learning. And it teaches students of color that their lives and the lives of their ancestors aren't as worth learning about as their white peers. Just a couple examples of general examples of Eurocentric curriculum. When we think about the continent of Africa on maps and globes and how its size is misrepresented, if you take a look at the image on the left here, the United States, the country of China, India, and a bunch of other large countries fit into the continent of Africa. It is significantly larger than a majority of continents in the world, but for some reason, it's very, very small on a lot of the maps and globes that we look at. Again, a Eurocentric lens. And my first quote from Lies My Teacher Told Me is, "Cherishing Columbus is a characteristic of white history, not American history." So when we think about Columbus and his legacy, from a Eurocentric lens, he's celebrated when in fact we're not really given the whole picture. Some of the facts I just very quickly wanted to bring up. Kings and queens, the facts. Black history doesn't start with the institution of slavery, and it doesn't end with the civil rights movement. It is a huge, inaccurate mistake for educators to introduce the history of Black and brown people with them as enslaved people who began as inferior and found their way out. I mean, think about how this could impact students' worldview, whether they're a student of color or whether they're white. Essentially, we are leaving out massive parts of history that are really important to where we're at today as a society. African kingdoms, rich civilizations, and advanced empires existed long before the institution of American slavery. They dispersed ideas, philosophies, and religions throughout the world. We have people of color to thank for so much. And just some other topics: the advancement of people of color within the United States government during Reconstruction, the growth of Black communities and culture during the Great Migration, the continued success and groundbreaking contributions of today that people of color still make each and every day. If we truly want students to take an interest in American history, then we need to stop lying to them. We need to tell them the truth and give all of the facts, not just the easy idea of Eurocentric curriculum to make people feel better about the past. Textbooks. If we take anything away as educators, textbooks are the foundation of what we do. They're the foundation of our curriculum, but they are problematic if they are our only source of knowledge and the only thing we are using with students. When textbooks are wrong, it's the perfect opportunity for students to use critical thinking and life skills. How many times have we read something on social media that simply just wasn't true? What did we do? Or what do we do as competent adults? We go back, we do research, we check our sources, right? So textbooks aren't the end all be all. And it's okay to question them and to question the content within them. Also, perfect opportunity to look at different perspectives, to compare and contrast, which are important skills that are covered in all classes, not just social studies and English. It is my strong recommendation that we are incorporating as many supplemental texts as possible, whether they're current events and articles, primary sources, realistic fiction, etc., written about or by people of color. Another quote from Lies My Teacher Told Me: "As long as our textbooks hide from us the roles that people of color have played in exploration, from 6000 BC to the 20th century, they encourage us to look at Europe and its extensions as the seat of all knowledge and intelligence, when we know that is not true. We know the world is a much larger place with a lot more diversity than just Europe." Again, so long as they discover, as they say discover, they imply that white people were the only people who really matter. As long as they celebrate Columbus rather than teach both sides of his exploit, they encourage us to identify with white Western exploitation rather than to study it from a critical lens, to look at the mistakes we've made in our past and address them in the present and in the future. So again, highly encourage all of you, especially the educators in the room, to supplement, to do your research. And representation, this is something that the Now Talk is going to be talked a lot about. But my best example of this is Kamala Harris. Shout out to Kamala. When we look at all of the vice presidents of the United States until this most recent election, all of them were older white men. And we can see just in the short weeks that Vice President Kamala Harris has been in office, the impact she has made on our students. It is so important that when students are learning, they also have representation in the text that they're working with, in the materials that are being used, in the videos they watch, in the pictures they look at. They need to see people that look like them. They need to see successful people that look like them, as they should, as they should. This is a topic that's going to be covered, I believe, a lot tomorrow in the Now Talk. So I'm not going to spend a whole lot more time on it than that. Why just February? Like, just February. Happy Black History Month to everybody. Happy Black History Month. But in classrooms, this needs to be a conversation 365 days a year, all 12 months. It is more than just a month. As much as students are exposed to white heroes and to people who are successful and white, they should be exposed to all of the amazing things that people of color have done throughout the history of the world. And the most important slide for me, 5 points, and this is specifically for the white educators out there. 5 points, our role as white educators, the main things that I want you to take away. Number 1, teach Black history and represent Black students and students of color in curriculum and text 365 days a year. And not, I repeat, not just experiences of oppression. Highlight contributions and individuals of color throughout history. Make texts and resources readily available for all students. If it's not in the curriculum, find it yourself and supplement it. It takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of research. It takes a lot of dedication to your craft, but it is an important step that we all need to take. When you don't know the answer to something, research it yourself. Put in the time and do the work. It is not the job of your of educators of color or your Black and brown coworkers to inform you about Black history. It is your responsibility as an educator to seek that knowledge, to be actively anti-racist, which I'm going to talk about in a moment. You are an advocate. You are not an expert. Stop speaking on behalf of people of color and on behalf of Black communities, and instead shut up and listen a little bit. Allow the voices of people of color in the room to be heard and highlighted. And when they're not, call out bad behavior. Make sure they are heard. Make sure your colleagues of color are heard in the room and in planning, in particular when it comes to curriculum. Empower students of color. Empower your students, whether it's leadership roles, extracurricular activities, whether it's sciences, technology, engineering, arts, whatever it might be in that STEAM area. Please empower students of color to pursue education in that specific area. And again, most importantly, be actively anti-racist. I want to end my video very quickly by just giving you a quote from another text that I read this past summer that was really moving for me, by Beverly Daniel Tatum, from the text, "Why are all the Black kids sitting together in the cafeteria?" This is something that being a part of Do It Now movement has been amazing for me as an individual to look at myself in the mirror. And I just really quickly, I know it's a long quote, I'm going to read it for you. and then just share my last perspective. Active racist behavior is equivalent to walking fast on the conveyor belt. The person is engaged in active racist behavior, has identified with the ideology of white supremacy, and is moving with it. Passive racist behavior is equivalent to standing still on the walkway. No overt effort is being made, but the conveyor belt moves the bystanders along to the same destination as those who are actively walking. Some of the bystanders feel the motion of that conveyor belt. They see the active racist ahead of them and choose to turn around, unwilling to go in the same destination as the white supremacists. But unless they are walking actively in the opposite direction at a speed faster than the conveyor belt, unless they are actively anti-racist, they will find themselves carried along with the others. As educators, we need to walk in the opposite direction of that conveyor belt of racism. We need to be actively anti-racist. If we are not doing it, who's going to? We are shaping and molding the minds of future generations, in particular of white students, that need to be addressed. This topic needs to be covered with them, and everything that we do, this needs to be in the back of our mind. Walk in the opposite direction. Be actively anti-racist. That's what I'm going to leave with y'all today. Again, I'm encouraging everybody to tune in for the amazing Now Talk that's planned tomorrow. Thanks so much for the opportunity. Have a great night and do it now.